They laughed at the Sherman. They called it weak, clumsy, a death trap. But hidden inside this steel box was something Germany never expected. A weapon more powerful than armor, more decisive than any gun. It was not steel. It was not fire. It was a voice. And that voice, carried by the most advanced radio of the war, turned a vulnerable tank into the deadliest force on the battlefield. This is the story of how American Shermans broke the Panzers, not with their cannons, but with their connection. The secret weapon inside the Sherman. To the German soldier crouched in a foxhole, the first glimpse of an American Sherman tank was rarely intimidating. It was tall, almost clumsy-looking. Its armor was thinner than a Panther's. Its 75mm gun seemed laughably small compared to the thunderous roar of an 88. German propaganda had already named it the Tommy Cooker, a tank that burned the moment it was hit. But what the Germans could not see, the invisible core of the Sherman, was what made it lethal. Hidden behind the commander's seat, humming quietly, was the SCR 508 FM radio. That little black box was not glamorous, but it was the most advanced battlefield communication system of the war. The Sherman's real power was not its steel, but its voice. The difference nobody saw. By 1942, every Sherman rolled off the line with a radio capable of two-way voice communication. Platoons, companies, entire divisions could talk in real time. Orders traveled not by flags or runners, but by words carried across the ether. German crews did not enjoy this luxury. Many Panzer III and IV tanks were fitted with only a receiver. They could hear orders but could not reply. If their commander's tank was destroyed, the rest of the platoon became mute and directionless. Even the mighty Tigers, icons of German power, often carried radios plagued with static and poor range. For the Americans, communication was not an afterthought, it was doctrine. They understood that armor, no matter how thick, was nothing if it fought blind. So they gave every Sherman a radio and every crew a voice. How it felt in the tank. Inside the noisy, suffocating steel belly of a Sherman, the radio was more than wires. It was a lifeline. Tankers pressed their throat mics and heard friendly voices cutting through the chaos. Red 3, shift left. Red 4, cover me. Contact front. 300 yards. It meant no crew fought alone. The moment one tank spotted danger, every tank knew. If one was knocked out, its final words might save the rest. The Germans never understood why Sherman units seemed to react with impossible speed. Why one ambush could fail in minutes. Why a handful of American tanks could fight like an entire battalion. The truth was simple. The Shermans were listening to each other. Perception versus reality. German gunners believed they faced endless waves of Shermans. In reality, often it was just a small platoon moving with the precision of a single organism. To the Germans, it looked like magic. To the Americans, it was just the radio. That little black box turned numbers into coordination, turned chaos into unity, and turned a vulnerable tank into a battlefield predator. The Sherman's armor could be pierced. Its gun could be outmatched. But as long as the radio worked, the Shermans fought together, and together they were unstoppable. Voices in the chaos. Normandy, summer 1944. The air was thick with dust and smoke, the hedgerows turning every lane into a killing ground. American Shermans pushed forward cautiously, their tracks grinding over dirt roads no wider than a farmhouse driveway. Every corner could hide a German gun. Every gap in the hedges could conceal a Panther waiting for the kill. And then it happened. A deafening crack. Fire. The lead Sherman exploded in a storm of steel and flame. In a German formation, this moment often spelled paralysis. When the commander's tank went up in smoke, the rest of the unit was left without orders. Blind, hesitant, exposed. But the American radios came alive. Red 2 hit. Fire coming from 11 o'clock. Hedge line. Red 3 flank right. Red 4 lay smoke cover the lane. In seconds, chaos turned into choreography. Sherman swung off the road, one spraying machine gun fire into the hedge, another dropping smoke grenades to block the enemy's view. Infantry hugged the ground, but even they were connected. Squad leaders carried portable radios linked directly to the tanks. The battlefield was a storm, yet within that storm, the Americans spoke with one voice, the human pulse of the radio. Inside those tanks, the radio wasn't just wires and dials. It was a heartbeat. Crews felt less alone because they could hear the voices of comrades fighting the same fight. The man in the next tank wasn't just a shadow in the smoke. He was in your ear, giving you courage. German accounts after the war tell the story. One panzer officer recalled, "We destroyed one tank, then two. But they always came back, maneuvering as if directed by one hand. We never understood how they moved so fast." The answer was not speed of the tank. It was speed of communication. Normandy's lesson. Every hedgerow fight reinforced the truth. The Germans relied on static defenses, on carefully planned ambushes. The Americans relied on radios, and radios turned every ambush into an opportunity. Even when a Sherman burned, its last transmission guided its brothers to safety, or revenge. By July, American commanders had mastered the system. Tanks and infantry advanced together, stitched by invisible threads of voice. An infantryman under fire could call directly to a Sherman for support. A tank commander spotting a hidden gun could summon artillery within minutes. Airstrikes, mine-clearing engineers, fresh reinforcements, all flowed through the same net. The Germans thought they faced endless reserves. In reality, they faced a smaller force that knew how to act as one body. The radio gave the Americans what the Germans had lost: initiative. The turning point. Operation Cobra, July 1944. When the American offensive finally broke the German lines, it was not only the bombers and artillery that cleared the way. It was the Shermans, talking to each other, moving in perfect coordination through the chaos. What looked like overwhelming numbers was often just coordination. What felt like inevitability was simply communication. The German soldier never knew. All he saw was that no matter how many Shermans he knocked out, more came from the flank, from the rear, from the smoke. He thought it was production. He thought it was luck. It was the radio. The edge that broke the panzers. Winter 1944. Snow fell heavy across the Ardennes, muffling the forests in white silence. Out of that silence came the roar of engines. German Panthers and Tigers, steel giants advancing through the woods. The world held its breath as Hitler's last gamble began, the Battle of the Bulge. At first, the surprise worked. American units were scattered. Villages burned. Roads clogged with refugees and retreating troops. The German plan was simple: break through the thin American line, crush their spirit, and drive to the sea. But what the Germans did not count on was the invisible shield inside every Sherman: the radio. The voices that refused to die. Even as tanks burned in the snow, their crews screamed coordinates into the microphones. Enemy armor, North Road, 200 meters. A moment later, another voice would pick up, "Copy that, we're moving." The network never went silent. A Sherman might die, but its last words guided the survivors. Small groups that should have been crushed regrouped because they never lost contact. Reinforcements found their way through blizzards because someone, somewhere, was still talking on the net. For the Germans, it was a nightmare. They believed they had broken the front. They believed they had isolated the Americans. Yet every time they tried to exploit the gap, Shermans appeared, too fast, too coordinated. To German eyes, it seemed as if endless reserves poured into the fight. In truth, it was the same battered units, reformed again and again by the lifeline of radio. Panthers versus Shermans. On paper, the match was absurd. A Panther's gun could kill a Sherman before the Americans were even in range. A Tiger II was nearly invulnerable from the front. But war is not fought on paper. The Panthers advanced in columns, their commanders shouting through frozen intercoms, often blind to what happened on neighboring roads. The Shermans advanced like hunters in a pack, each one feeding information to the others. When one was hit, the rest shifted. When Germans massed in a village, American artillery fell within minutes, summoned by tank radios. When German infantry tried to infiltrate at night, Shermans with radios warned every foxhole along the line. The Germans had the beasts. The Americans had the hive. And the hive won. The collapse. By January 1945, the Ardennes offensive had stalled. Fuel ran out. tanks were abandoned, and everywhere American armor closed in. The Germans realized too late that the Sherman's true strength had never been its armor or its gun. It was the invisible web that bound every crew together, a web no shell could break. Captured panzer officers admitted their disbelief. One confessed, "We thought we fought armies of steel. In truth, we fought their radios. They made one tank into many. We never stood a chance." The legacy. The Sherman was not perfect. Its armor was thin, its firepower often inadequate. Thousands of crews paid the price. But what they carried inside changed warfare forever. The radio turned the tank from a lone brawler into part of a living organism, an army that could move, adapt, and strike faster than any opponent. For the German soldier, it would forever remain a mystery why Shermans always seemed to arrive, always seemed to know, always seemed to outmaneuver. The answer was simple. They weren't stronger. They weren't thicker. They were connected. And in the crucible of war, the most powerful weapon is not the gun that fires, nor the armor that holds. It is the voice that binds men together and refuses to be silenced. The German soldier never knew why Shermans always moved faster, why they always arrived, why they always fought as one. It wasn't numbers. It wasn't luck. It was the radio. Invisible, unstoppable, unforgettable. The voice inside the Sherman changed the war forever. Asterisk.